It's that time of year again. To ensure that your company is fully compliant with all US DOT requirements that were due in 2024. Take a look at this list. All of these are items that every motor carrier needs to handle to avoid non-compliance penalties and violations. We will quickly review those requirements and provide clear instructions on how to comply with those that you may have missed. Make sure to watch the entire video, as we will discuss two brand new US DOT regulations that were introduced in late 2024. Let's start with the Unified Carrier Registration, or UCR. Most seasoned motor carriers are aware that if one transports goods across state lines, they must comply with the federally mandated UCR registration that is required for all interstate motor carriers except private passenger carriers. What is less known is that even intrastate carriers whose vehicles do not cross state lines must also comply with the UCR mandate if the goods they are transporting originated out of state or have a destination out of state. This is especially true of local short-haul carriers completing the final leg of contracted load transport. It's important to submit this registration now to avoid violations. It is also highly encouraged to certify your UCR filing. UCR certification is like insurance to your UCR filing. It protects your company from violations for the entire 2025 period. Contact a UCR processor for more details. That was UCR, a popular regulation that most motor carriers know. Here is one you might not have heard much about, as it is a new requirement for motor carriers that will be enforced starting January 31st, 2025. Beneficial ownership information, or commonly known as the BOI report. As part of the Corporate Transparency Act, most businesses must report individuals who own or control 25% or more of the company via the newly established BOI report. If you have not yet filed the required BOI report, call the processor's BOI reporting hotline now, 866-866-6343. Next is a clearinghouse mandate and clearinghouse queries. If you employ drivers who hold a commercial driver's license, this one is for you. And it has one of the highest penalties for non-compliance, up to $5,000 per driver. By federal law, all CDL drivers must be queried via the Clearinghouse Limited Query System at least once a year. This is still a new regulation, and the FMCSA is only starting to enforce it. As part of the scaled enforcement measures introduced in 2024, a new mandate has been implemented. 86 FR 55718. Under this mandate, CDL licenses will be immediately suspended for all drivers with failed queries. It is therefore critical to ensure that all drivers are queried and, if necessary, requeried. For more details about this addendum to the clearinghouse mandate, call the processor's clearinghouse hotline now, 240-544-0955. Hand in hand with clearinghouse queries, we have the annual MVR reports, which are required for all drivers employed by motor carriers. If you have not yet completed MVR reports for your drivers, call the MVR processing hotline, 240-544-0930. Next, we have random consortium renewals. This program is required for all CDL drivers. Failure to comply with it will not only result in penalties up to $5,000 per driver, but also a failed US DOT audit. For motor carriers enrolled in a drug and alcohol testing consortium, it is essential to renew it to ensure uninterrupted compliance with DOT regulations. Here's a thought. Renew your program membership in 2025 with a provider where all random tests, regardless of selection and number of drivers in your company, are 100% free. There is no catch, no lab fees, no company fees. For more details, call 240-544-0930. 0909. Safety policies are critical in demonstrating your company's adherence to FMCSA regulations. At a US DOT compliance review, you will be required to present a protocol, a set of policies, that shows your company's oversight of employees in relation to enforcement of FMCSA regulations. Regulations change, and new regulatory updates are introduced every year. It is therefore important to have a safety policy updated for every year your company is in business. If you do not have a 2024 safety policy, you can still order one. Call 240-544-0878. If you are a motor carrier traveling to or through New Mexico or New York, this one is for you. If you fail to obtain or renew your state permit, you will not be able to continue operating in New York or New Mexico routes in 2025. Last but not least, the US DOT Biennial Update. This is the most universal DOT requirement under Regulation FMCSR 390.201, as it applies to all motor carriers with no exceptions. Every motor carrier must file a biennial update, even if there are no changes to how your company operates. It is one of those filings that must be done regardless of any other factors. Failing to comply with this mandate is extremely expensive. It will cost a motor carrier up to $10,000 in penalties when enforced at a US DOT compliance review. But that is not all. Even more immediate consequence of non-compliance than the penalty is deactivation or suspension of your US DOT number. All of these US DOT requirements are firm. And do not forget, if you fail to meet compliance filing standards for 2024, you can still face consequences 3 years down the line. Do not let this list intimidate you or introduce any confusion or uncertainty. If you have more than one filing to submit or have questions about multiple items on the list, instead of calling each service hotline, you can contact the processor's toll-free filing hotline where you can discuss and file all the above listed services. That number is 866-866-0217.
Federal Applications Processor.